Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to be making a sticky ginger loaf. In fact, I'm going to be making two, but you could easily just halve the recipe and make one. And this goes into a 2-pound loaf tin. And I thought this would be a very nice alternative to those for those who don't like Christmas cake, that rich fruity cake, or maybe don't like Christmas pudding, and you could use this either as a cake on Christmas Day, or you can use it instead of Christmas pudding with some cream or some custard or whatever. So it's quite a simple recipe, and I saw this on a website called Rainy Day Mum, and I'll put a link to that website below this video so you can see the original recipe as well. And I have my oven preheating to 170 Celsius, that's 150 Celsius with a fan, 340 Fahrenheit, and I have a 2-pound loaf tin here, which I have lined with a paper liner. If you don't have a paper liner, you can grease the tin and line it with parchment paper, sides and bottom. That's just to make it easier to remove the loaf afterwards. I think you could potentially just grease the tin and flour it as well. But anyway, I have the liner. So I'll go on to the ingredients. And for the ingredients, I have 300 grams, which is 2 cups, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of plain flour. I have 150 grams of unsalted butter, and that is half a cup plus 2.5 tablespoons. I have 125 grams of dark brown sugar, and that is half a cup plus 2 tablespoons. I have 200 grams of black treacle or molasses, you could use molasses, and that is half a cup. I have 200 grams of golden syrup, which is half a cup plus 1 tablespoon. I have 250 milliliters, which is 1 cup of milk. I have 2 large eggs beaten, and that would be extra large in the USA. Then I have 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of salt. And I also have 1 teaspoon of baking soda, which I'm going to dissolve in 2 tablespoons of baking soda, and I'm just going to let that dissolve while we get to work. So what I'm going to do is to put the sugar, the golden syrup, the salt, the spices, the black treacle and the butter into a saucepan, and I'm going to melt those and mix them together. And it doesn't matter if the black sugar is clumping, because it will all come together and dissolve. Now, to make this easier, you could simply weigh the molasses and the golden syrup into your saucepan rather than putting it into a separate container like I have. But I did grease this little dish to help it come out that little bit easier. And the same with the golden syrup. So I'm going to put those onto a heat, and I'm going to melt those, heat them until the butter melts and everything comes together and the sugar has dissolved. You don't need to watch me do that. That's just a question of heating that up. And when it's all melted and combined, I will come back and we'll go on to the next step. So that mixture is melted now. It's all dissolved quite nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour in the milk and stir that around. That will bring the temperature down, so then I can pour my beaten egg in as well. And mix that around. And then the dissolved baking soda. And again, mix it around to get it combined. So that's good. So then the final thing to do is to put the flour into a larger bowl and just pour this mixture in and then mix everything until it is all fully combined. So I've mixed everything together until the flour is fully incorporated, and I'm going to put half of this into my loaf tin and the other half into, for me, into my mini bundt tin, which I've greased and floured, but a second loaf tin would work just as well. So I have my 2 tins filled, and I'm going to put those into the oven, and I'm going to bake them for 45 minutes to an hour. I will test them to see that a skewer comes out fairly clean. These are going to be sticky, so it may not come out entirely clean, but they should be firm to the touch if you press the top of them. And then I'll take them out and allow them to cool down, and I'll come back and show you the results. I baked the Sticky Ginger Loaf Cake for 50 minutes, and I pressed the top of it and it was springy to the touch, and I tested it with a skewer and it came out clean. So I took both my cakes out of the oven and I allowed them to cool down for 10 minutes in the tin, and then I took them out of the tin and put them on a wire rack to cool completely. And this is what they look like. And so they've baked very nicely indeed, it seems to me. And I should say that to store, if you wrap these in some plastic wrap or some in an airtight container and leave them for at least a day, it will become stickier. It will become stickier the longer you store it, basically. I'm going to taste it now rather than wait for a day, and we'll see what it tastes like. Well, it has that lovely gingery flavour, of course, which gives that little bit of heat. It's soft, moist, and will be very sticky tomorrow. In fact, if I put it on a plate and leave it as I have done, if I try to pick it up, it will want to stick to the plate. So I think this is a very good alternative to a Christmas cake. I should say you could make some icing with some icing sugar and a little drop of lemon juice and mix it until it's thickened, and you can drizzle that over the top if you want to, as an additional flavour. But for me, I like this just as it is. So that's going to be it for this recipe, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for this recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.